going?
I'm all right, mate. How you doing?
I'm going really, really well. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us today.
Oh, it's fine, man. I'll talk to anyone to promote the movie. It's all good.
Well, mate,
So,
I've had a chance to sit down and watch the film, and I've got to say, congratulations. This is an absolutely fantastic film.
oh, thank you. I appreciate that, man.
So, what was your first thoughts when you read this script? Because this script, to me, it feels like Blade Runner meets The Fifth Element. It's got so much going on in there. What was your first thoughts when you read it?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has been compared a lot to Blade Runner, and genuinely, when I read it, I just read this very smart, intelligent, lean story, like a noir detective story, and of course, there's certainly elements there that the cyberpunk science fiction audience, obviously, Blade Runner is this kind of iconic piece that everything gets associated with when you go into that world. So now I'm starting to see that. But to really answer your question, I just saw a really interesting story, and it's quite timely about how machines, we're at a point where, robots are starting to take over a lot of everyday life activities, and maybe in 10 years time we could be in a situation where they start to present Jane, maybe even sooner, as a model. And so I found the writing really intelligent. The script was so engaging for me, and I'm very visual. I used to be an art director, and then I I did a lot of commercials and music videos, so I'm definitely a director with an eye, and but the movie, that what it represented to me was an opportunity to work with some wonderful actors and cast the movie really well, which we did. It took us a long time to cast the movie, both from a creative and a practical point of view, and it was very difficult, in the beginning, because it was my first movie, and then to end up with the whole cast, not just Guy and Travis and Matilda, who were great, but the whole cast were spectacular. I'm really proud of the cast and what they did. And the crew, obviously. We achieved a lot on a prudent budget.
Yeah, I'll come back to the cast in a moment, but I just wanted to ask, how much of the world that we see in the film was there in the original screenplay, and how much input did you have with that as well? Because, as you mentioned, you've got a background in art direction. Did you have any input into what the world looked like?
Yeah, absolutely, and it depends. Movies are like, making a movie is like building a house. The script is the blueprint. And then as you start to build a house off the blueprint, one wall that was going to be brick suddenly was going to be glass, because it depends. So where you choose to shoot a film is going to affect the film, and who you choose to bring into the film, etc. So that's the wonderful thing about filmmaking. It's an organic, constantly changing process. We shot this movie, believe it or not. Well, we shot it in the Game of Thrones studio in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, which is the capital of Northern Ireland. And I'd never been there before. And before it was a movie studio, it was where they built the Titanic ship, believe it or not.
Wow.
Amazing. So we shot in one of our sound stages or whatever was where they built the Titanic. It was amazing. But they shot all the Game of Thrones, the original show there, for 8 seasons of it, and we were very lucky to have that. So that was a pretty salubrious studio for us to have, and so that affected as well the locations, etc. Belfast turned out to be quite good. It was, because of its history, there's quite a bit of socialist architecture, etc. And I wanted the film to have that kind of drab, socialist sort of, at times monochromatic, dark atmosphere, because the world is pretty nasty, and it's not meant to be like really attractive. It's basically kind of a place where people go, but they want to be anonymous, and do whatever they like, and pay for that. So So it's kind of like Vegas Underground, I suppose, or something like that, you know?
Definitely, and that came across in the film as well. And you mentioned the casting. Now I understand that originally Guy Travis was supposed to play Guy's role. Is that correct, or is IMDb a little bit
Yeah,
wrong there?
no, again, this is the nature of filmmaking. Initially, Guy was floating around playing the lead, and then he had another project that he was going to direct, and that was going to take up his time. And then Travis came into the mix, and he was going to do the lead, and then his schedule got, and then we got Guy in to play Marlon, and then his availability became difficult, because you got to remember, this is a independent movie, and you know, the guys, forgive the pun, whatever, Guy and Travis, you know, they're very busy actors, so we're trying to accommodate their schedules, and so it ended up that initially Travis officially came on as the lead, and Guy came on to play Marlon, and then they swapped over scheduling. And you know, I mean, of course, I ended up then with Guy, who's an absolute master film actor with tremendous experience, on my first movie in as a lead, and I was thrilled. Travis is absolutely fantastic too. We've just done another movie together. I can't speak. Look, I love these actors, all of them as well, not just the big name actors. And the one thing I learned from this film is how well I get on with these actors. And you can have all the visual capabilities in the world, but when it comes to making films or drama, if you don't vibe with these actors, you're not going to be doing this, you know. And if you do, you are, because they are an essential component to making films.
Definitely,
you know, particularly yeah.
And
Matilda, by the way, I just want to say, you know, Matilda really influenced this movie. She influenced Jane. She influenced the way the movie was made. Because another thing, it's not just the locations, and she pulled off it's a tricky role, and not a lot of actors wanted to, you know, get in and play this kind of role, because essentially Jane is like a high-priced prostitute, you know, who's an android. But Matilda brought to it what you saw. She brought intelligence, she brought strength, she brought subtlety, and I think she did a great job. I'm really proud of her.
She was absolutely sensational. And that was actually my next question. Was Matilda always going to be Jane? Like, did you know from the moment that you met her that she was the right person to play Jane?
Yeah. Like, before I met her, you know, I mean, Matilda came up I think my manager, Jib, who's one of the producers on the movie, Martin Brennan was the lead producer, did a phenomenal job producing this movie, and I don't compliment him enough, because he really, what we were able to achieve in Belfast was extraordinary. And also Mark Huffam, who brought Game of Thrones into Belfast, and funnily enough, produces all Ridley Scott's movies, was an absolute hero to this movie. We wouldn't have made it without Mark. Anyway, so sorry, what was your question again?
Did you know that Matilda was always going to be Jane when you met her?
Well, yeah. So Jim brought her up, and I knew about Revenge. I knew about it. I don't think I'd even seen it, but I was like, that girl, that lady, or whatever, the woman, that actress is interesting. She's strong. She's just tough and strong, and that's, of course, she's beautiful, and Matilda's quite petite when you meet her, but that doesn't come across in cinema. You know, she just comes across as tough and strong, and of course beautiful, and I really appreciate that quality, and I thought that's exactly what Jane needed, and that's why. And then when I met her, yeah, she was very petite, and in a way, I mean, Matilda, I think, anyway, we don't like to talk about actresses' ages, but she's quite young, and she reminded me of my daughter, you know, and I felt like, oh wow, immediately, and I was like, interesting, and I was just really impressed with her, you know. She's a very classy lady, and one of those situations where you never judge a book by its cover, because she's just very confident and intelligent, and I'm thrilled she played Jane. It very much influenced the movie, you know, and whichever actress you could have gotten for Jane, and it could have gone many ways, We could have gone down a very dark, salacious, very misogynistic route with this movie, even not by design but by fault. And I was very conscientious of making the film entertaining, obviously, but also making it classy and making sure that Jane represented a very strong individual female character. But again, Matilda brought all of that, and I just tried to facilitate it.
Andrew, the other thing that makes this film so special is your work on this film. This film, you mentioned before, it's an independent film. It doesn't look like an independent film. It looks like it had a $200 million Hollywood budget. Tell us a little bit about how you felt when you first walked onto the set and started working on this film, because I know there's a lot of filmmakers out there who'd be very interested to know what that felt like for you walking onto the set for your first feature.
Well, it's funny. The first thing we shot was the tunnel, with Guy. Well, yeah, the opening sequence where he goes down the tunnel and interviews the lady in the cell was the very first. I think that was the first day of shooting. I think it was. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry, mate. I can't remember. But look, I shot a lot of stuff before, which is, particularly for a movie this complex, it was really vital. I appreciate what you said. In a way, it's kind of to say that it looks like a studio film. Actually, Universal are putting it out in the international markets. Paramount under Saban have put it out in the US. So it has a couple of studios. But we really are an independent movie. And I think a lot of the comparisons in the US have been to these major massive studio tentpole movies, and I don't know, maybe it's positive or negative, whatever, but the audience has been quite they've liked this movie quite a bit, and which is, I suppose, at the end, that's what this is. It's a genre movie. It's for an audience, that kind of sci-fi fantasy world, and I can't speak highly enough about the crew, like the crews and the facilities, because I've been in LA for 15 years. I come from Ireland, but I've worked in LA and based in LA for 15 years and worked all over the United States and in Europe, but I hadn't ever been to Belfast. It's extraordinary what they were able to do. It's very impressive what you're able to achieve in Northern Ireland, and also all the post-visual effects were done at a great post house, world class, called Windmill Lane, very famous place in Dublin. I've done my second movie there now, and we're finishing that, and I'm going to do my third movie there. So I don't know. It was very much a coming home experience where it was like, wow, I got to work with a great DP, James Mather, that I worked with a long time ago. I went to film school with him. Worked with a lot. It's just a fantastic experience, but I wasn't nervous or anxious, or it's just a wonderful experience. That's all I can say. It was a long time coming. I'd wanted to make a feature film for probably 18 years. That's how long it took, and I worked on Zone for 5. I think it took 5 years. I made a video for the weekend, and that got the attention of the writer, and he sent me the script, and then it went through the process of casting. And trying to cast your first movie as a first-time director can be daunting, But that goes to show the strength of the script, Just look at the cast that the script brought, So that tells you how good the writing was.
Definitely. Well, Andrew, again, I want to say congratulations on the film. We are right out of time, but just before I go, is there anything you would like to say to Australian audiences out there before they go and check out this film?
Well, look, it's been a joy to work with Travis and Guy. It's funny, I've never been to Australia. I'd love to go. And I think, I know Guy was born in England, but but Travis is a phenomenal actor. I think we all know what Guy has done. I think particularly with this film and also the next film I've done with Travis, you're going to be, I think, blown away. I think he's an amazing actor, and we kind of became quite friendly over these two movies, and just go check it out and support your own, I suppose. You know, I mean, these guys have gone out. They've gone into the American film business, which is notoriously difficult and cutthroat, and they have achieved tremendous success. You know, and to be proud of that. You know, like I'm proud of my guys back in Ireland for putting this together, and we had some great Irish actors in this too. So, and you know, I suppose in the end, to finish up, is like, you know what? If they're comparing us to Hollywood, big Hollywood studio movies, rock and roll, you know what I mean? We're not, but you know what? And we didn't intend to be. It's just the way it is, and I think it's a result of every single person, every single element on this movie giving 1,000% to it. That's why it's being compared like that.
Definitely.